excited today about the fact that I was so, well, I was a little nervous, but I had the opportunity to interview the ex-wife of the DC sniper. So today I'm going to be able to interview somebody else. It's going to be a surprise, but I want y'all to stay tuned. Check out this excellent interview from Mildred Muhammad, the ex-wife of the DC sniper. I am so excited. Today I am here with Mildred Muhammad, the award-winning global keynote speaker and representing domestic violence. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing well. How about you?
I am doing great. I thank you so much for coming out and just willing to share your awesome story with all of us, actually. I'm going to get started by basically asking you the most important question to me. How did you, I think for a lot of us, we don't even really recognize the signs of domestic violence. How did you get to the point where you were like, okay, this is not right, I'm going to have to make a change or, whatever it is to remove myself from this situation? Give me a little bit about your backstory and how all that came about.
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity for me to share my story with you and your audience. 80% of victims do not have physical scars to prove that they're victims. So when John said to me, "You have become my enemy, and as my enemy, I will kill you," that was when it was time for me to go. Because most people don't have scars to prove that they are victims. I didn't have a scar at all, and the hardest part of that was nobody believed me. And so when you're trying to go to family or friends and you're trying to find a way to leave, and then you realize that it's all up to you, then you have to begin to be creative. You have to put in place those systems that you will need in order to leave. John didn't change until he came back from Desert Storm because he was in the military. Prior to going to Desert Storm, he was the life of the party. He was the go-to guy to have fun. He would talk about everything. I mean, our conversations would be ongoing. However, when he returned, he didn't want me to know what was going on inside his head. He became distant. He would rock back and forth, sitting in a corner. He was diagnosed with PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, but he was not debriefed once he came back. So that is what I had to try to find a way to understand, because the man that I married is still in Saudi, and the one that came back is a total stranger.
Interesting. How did that affect the children?
Well, at the time when he came back, we only had little John.
Okay.
And so he was paramount in helping him to become stable. Then came Selena, and then came Taliba. And by the time we had Taliba, we were at Fort Lewis in Tacoma, Washington.
Okay.
And we got out of the military, started our own business. It was Express Car Truck Mechanic. It was a mobile auto repair service. And that's when things started to manifest in how he would want to isolate us and not want anybody to be around. And those little red flags start to come up, and you think,
So at that point, when did the situation get to the point where it's like, okay, gotta leave, or I gotta split, or this is not working?
Well, I had asked John for a divorce because he was having multiple affairs. He said he didn't want one. I said, well, you acting free, you may as well be free. So he moved out, but he still had a key to the house. He would come in the middle of the night. I would hear the key going in the door. He would walk around the bed from one side to the other, lean over to listen to me breathe, stand up and walk out the house. So that's when I realized I needed to get the locks changed, and I did. So you get one thing fixed and then something else goes wrong. So now my phone is not ringing, and a friend of mine called to check on me and the children and asked her how did she get the number. She said, well, John changed your number and gave it to me, so I'm just calling to check on you. And I said, well, okay, well, you know, my children have asthma, so let me get the number. She didn't give me the number. She said, I'm not giving you the number. And she hung up. So I called the phone company, explained to them what was going on, and they gave me a new number. As soon as I hung up the phone, it rang. And it was John. He said, who told you to change this number? I said, I don't need your permission to change my number. He said, don't do it again. I hung up, called them back, got a new number. As soon as I hung up the phone, he called back. He said, what do you think you're doing? Don't do this again. Come to find out, he had befriended a woman at the phone company.
Wow.
So every time I changed my number,
Yeah.
she will call him, give him the number, and then he would in turn call me.
Wow. Okay. So at this point, this quits for you. Done.
Well, yes, because I asked him for a divorce. But when I went to try to get I had to get a restraining order. They gave me a lifetime restraining order because they understood how dangerous he was. As I said before, he said, you have become my enemy, and as my enemy, I will kill you. But we still had to have visitation with the children.
Mm-hmm.
So the first weekend went fine. We got somebody to pick him up and take him to him and bring him back. The second weekend was my mother's birthday. He was supposed to bring him back on that Sunday. He didn't bring him back. He got on a plane and left the country and was gone for 18 months. I didn't know where my children were. People around me knew and didn't tell me. They would come over to check on me to find out how I was doing and then go back to John and tell him. So they were always reporting to him what I was doing. So I shut down all communication with everybody around me.
So at this point, wow. Okay. So when did you finally were able to get your children? And then I would assume that that's when the whole everything else transpired.
Well, it was after he took the children, my cycle wouldn't go off. So I lost 3 units of blood. I passed out. They took me to the hospital. They put me on a blood transfusion. John called my mother and said, I'm on my way to kill your daughter. Somebody told him I was in the hospital. So she called the hospital. They took me out of that room, put me in another room, posted a guard outside my door. The social worker came and said, you can't go home. They put me in hiding in a shelter, changed my name, changed my clothes. Nobody knew where I was. So once I was in the shelter, I was able to get my restraining order, get my divorce. My mom was over here in Maryland. My sister called and asked me to come to help her, which I did. That's when I came over here. Went into hiding again, called the FBI, told them what was going on. They said that because this was an ongoing case, they couldn't help me. Mm-hmm. And they asked me to call the office in Seattle because that's where it started. Mm-hmm. So I called them and told them what was going on, and they said, well, you know, Miss Muhammad, since we know he's looking for you, what we want to do is we want to put you in the middle of a parking lot, use you as a decoy. This way we can lure him out. I said, excuse me? It's going to be a headshot. You're not going to know which way the bullet came from. They said, we're just trying to help you out. And I hung up the phone, so I didn't go through with that. So it wasn't until August the 31st of 2001 that I got my children back and had to fly back to Tacoma. Had to face John in the court. He tried to attack me in the courthouse. And that's when they flew us back to BWI and I laid low. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't call anybody. I didn't do anything. So fast forward to the shootings. They told us to look for 2 Caucasians in a white box truck. So I'm looking for that, and I'm looking for John, because he's going to kill me. And I know it's going to be a headshot. And I know he's going to bury me somewhere where nobody will be able to find me.
So I guess a lot of people really don't know the full backstory to all of that.
They don't.
It wasn't about people, it was about you.
It was. It wasn't about 2 black men in a Chevy trying to put $10 million on a stolen credit card. It was about, the theory was he was killing innocent people to cover up my murder so that he could come in as the grieving father and get custody of our children and the $100,000 compensation they were giving to the victims of the sniper.
Wow.
So prior to, say, October the 23rd, ATF knocked on my door, said, we need for you to come down to the police station. And that's when they say, Miss Muhammad, we just going to have to tell you, we're going to name your ex-husband, he was my ex-husband, as the sniper. But do you think he would do something like this? I looked around the room and I said, yeah. They said, well, why would you think that? I said, because he said I could take a small city, terrorize it. They would think it would be a group of people and it would only be me. I said, why would you do something like that? I say, well, he changed the subject. And that's when law enforcement said to me, Ms. Muhammad, didn't you know you were the target? I say, why would I think that? I say, well, there was a man shot 6 times down the street from you. There was another man shot in the abdomen 2 miles from you. You were the target. And they put me and my children, my sister, my brother-in-law in protective custody until they caught him. That's the part people don't know.
Right, right. Thank you. I know
It's not.
Yeah.
We good.
And that's a good thing. That's a great thing.
Doesn't bother me.
Yeah. So, thank you so much for that. And for women that are going through this now, I'm sure that I even think back about the woman that was set on fire. There's just so many stories. But I think a lot of women just do not know what to do. I know you're a spokesperson now. What do you have that can empower and help women that are going through what you went through? And maybe not as much, the end type part of your story, but just in general, the things that we go through or women have gone through with the controlling. How can they get away from it? What suggestions do you have?
Well, because 80% of victims do not have physical scars to prove that they're victims, then that means that they may not even know they're in an abusive relationship. So I would suggest the first thing to do is get a sheet of paper, draw a line down the middle, one side pros, the other side cons. And you're doing this based upon the relationship, not the individual, because we all change, we're all flawed. So we're just looking at the relationship. So when you start to write down these pros and cons, then what you have to do is separate your emotions from the actual facts, which means he hit me, not he hit me because. Once you put the because, then you're making excuses for him.
Yes, you are.
Or her, right? So when you write a pro, he paid the bill today. Don't put the because. Pros and cons, straight like that. Just like Judge Judy says, just the facts.
Just the
no facts. Dr. Phil, Oprah type emotions that you have attached to that item that you're listing. Just the facts. Because you cannot make a decision based on emotions. You will go back every time.
Every time.
So you have your facts. Whatever is at the end of the pros, if you have more pros than cons, then you look at the cons and say, you know what? We can work on this. We can work on this relationship and we can get this right. But if the cons outweigh the pros, you have a decision to make. You have a decision to make. Some choose to leave, some choose to stay. But understand that's your decision. and no one should interfere with how you decide to live your life. It is your decision. If you stay, it's your decision. If you leave, it's your decision. If you decide to leave, the best resource that is available right now is a website called domesticshelters.org.
Okay.
It is a national resource. You go to that website, you type in your state, and it will bring up the cities. Click on your city, and all of the resources for your city is listed there. It is the best one. It has legal representation. There are articles to read if you want to find out more information about your situation, on what to do, how to handle a narcissist or a sociopath, right?
Yes.
That's the best resource that we have now.
That is awesome. Domesticshelters.org. Shelters.org. Very good. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, ma'am.
So in closing, I want you to, I know you said that for you, you did some self-counseling because, you know, you weren't able to really depend on any other type of counseling. So can you just tell people what book it was again that you said that you used to kind of help you with your situation? I think no, it wasn't. Okay.
I just went to the library. I got a book on counseling.
Okay.
And I learned how to counsel me and my children myself. It was a high-profile case, and it was difficult to find ethical counselors. And I
Okay.
needed my children to move from being emotionally balanced children to emotionally balanced adults.
Very good, yeah. So I just try to make sure that people understand sometimes we do need some help emotionally. So that was great that you were able to do that. Let people know how they can follow you. Your website, I know it's awesome, so I would like for you to give any type of number or email or anything that people can use to get in touch with you. And if you're open to bookings and things of that nature, that as well.
Well, to follow me, you can go to www.mildredmuhammad.com. You can follow me on Facebook. Twitter is twitter.com/MildredMuhammad. I have a LinkedIn page as well. If you want to contact me because you need assistance in your situation, you can email me at afterthetrauma@yahoo.com. I always respond within 24 hours because I know what it feels like when you're waiting for someone to contact you and they don't. I will respond within 24 hours.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing and share with people? Maybe just a word of empowerment will be great. If you could leave that with all the people. And of course, it's not just women, it's men as well.
Right.
I think we tend to forget about the men too.
Well, when you're going through domestic violence situation, you have to be able to listen to your own spirit. Other people can tell you what they think you should do, but you have to trust that you know what you should do. That's what I had to do. I had to turn off the voices of other people in order to tap into my own spirit and know which way I had to go. Many people didn't feel like I was doing the right thing. Didn't matter to me because I had to do what was best for me and my children. And that's the bottom line.
Bottom line. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to head on out of here, but guys, if you have any situations that you, like she said, need to get out of, domesticshelters.org. Make sure you check that out. And you can look me up as well if you need to speak about any of your situations or need any help. JV Jones on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. So thanks again much.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you.
And we're out of here. JV Jones interview with Mildred Muhammad.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.